Hello everybody, it's the Historical Gamer once again, and today we're going to be returning to what I think is part 4? I don't know, I've lost track of my episodes of War in the Pacific, Admirals Edition, playing against XTRG in a play-by-email game. Today we're going to be jumping in and looking at some combat results, and then we'll also take a look at the turn that I've actually already started to begin processing, but just haven't gotten around to finishing the turn. I did want to show you guys the results of December 10th, however, before we jump into issuing orders on December 11th. So we're just going to jump into the combat save, which has the most recent results, and then we'll go ahead, look at that, and then we'll jump into a turn, which I'm kind of halfway through issuing orders and whatnot. All right, here we go. So I've turned the music off, by the way, as well, guys, just because it did tend to lead to a lot of copyright strikes on YouTube, because apparently the music is copywritten, and the game may or may not have license for people to share it on YouTube, so YouTube's automatic algorithms often flag it as copywritten material. Meanwhile, we can see here that the northeastern corner of Luzon has fallen to the Japanese, just sort of by osmosis. They had a lot of troops there. We didn't have any troops there, so it became their property. And in addition, the Japanese are landing additional troops on the Malay Peninsula near Kota Baru. You can see that. Additionally, more troops are coming ashore near Vigan on the northwestern corner of Luzon. And that's all we know so far. Naval movement phase. We have our first naval battle, ships on ships of the war. It appears to be some patrol boats of ours that are trying to close with Imperial Japanese Navy destroyers and light cruisers. The hope was that these patrol boats would break through and attack the transports, dropping troops. I don't like my odds against light cruisers and destroyers, however. My patrol boats are probably in a little bit of trouble. So as you can see here, this is kind of how the combat results are played out in this game. You get different phases where ships shoot at each other. I don't even know if the patrol boats will get in close enough to open fire. They might loose some long-range torpedoes, but the likelihood of their small, piddly little pop guns actually coming into action against the Japanese surface vessels is pretty limited. You can see here torpedoes are in the water. Our torpedo boats are firing torpedoes. Presumably they're going to miss small, fast targets. But I'm actually just going to fast forward through the results here, and we'll see what the report is afterwards. So we claimed no hits on the Japanese ships. They claimed no hits on any of our patrol boats except for Q111, which suffered one shell hit. So a lot of shooting. It looks like the Japanese commander did cross the T. We closed to 9,000 yards, closed to 6,000 yards. So actually got kind of in close there, but nobody was able to gain any advantage before our ships eventually sped off and broke contact with the enemy. This is a night engagement, by the way. The map is dark, which indicates it is a nighttime engagement. So you can see there our task force is retreating from the enemy surface vessels, and the enemy surface vessels managed to shield their transports from our attack. Meanwhile, there is apparently still a Japanese midget submarine operating in and around Pearl Harbor. That's what the SSX stands for. We have destroyers which are, sighting and attacking these enemy vessels. Okay, so we're still in the night phase. Not really any nighttime air combat occurring. And the S-40 bottoming out. Japanese have spotted this S-boat. Took 3 hits in some anti-submarine operations near Vigan. Again, the S-40, an old S-boat with reliable Mark 10 torpedoes, unlike the Mark 14s, which are on our newer boats, trying to get in close to the enemy invasion force, but was unsuccessful. Meanwhile, this is a new development here. The Japanese are bombarding Wake Island. They have yet to land any troops here. We're 4 days after Pearl Harbor, and yet still no invasion on Wake, but that may be about to change as a relatively strong force here of light cruisers and destroyers are bombarding the islands. You can see Coastal Defense claimed 1 hit on each cruiser. It looks like they landed troops as well. So 87 Japanese casualties against 6 of our own, according to intelligence. And you can see here the Japanese task force unloaded additional Japanese troops, an SLNAF squad or unit. And they now have troops ashore at Wake Island. So we'll see if we can hold out or if Wake Island is doomed per history. I would at least like to repel one amphibious invasion, however, on Wake, as again happened in history. More Japanese troops coming ashore at Vigan. I'm wondering if that's their main effort, and if Apri was more of a minor one, but it's hard to tell at this point. Naval reaction phase. More troops landing at Wake. We'll fast forward through that. Looks like the number of our coastal guns there is decreasing with time. All right. And a Japanese I-boat firing some torpedoes at a tanker of ours just to the east of Borneo. It looks like it did get a hit on the tanker. Additionally, an I-boat near Palmyra in the sort of central Pacific, just south of Pearl Harbor, I guess, fired a torpedo on a destroyer minesweeper to no effect. Another surface engagement with Japanese cruisers and destroyers for patrol boats. I'm not sure if our patrol boats have any torpedoes left or who initiated the engagement. But let's see here. It looks like they hit the PT Q111 again one time and sank it. The task force is withdrawing again from the Japanese. More anti-submarine actions occurring off the southeast corner of Luzon. And the task force is withdrawing to Vigan after combat. I thought that's where they originally were. Are they going to get attacked again? All right, we're into the air operations phase. So we've gotten through the naval operations at night and in the early morning. And now we're on to things with engines flying through the skies. Charcoal, no. XTRG has not caught my carriers yet. So you can see the Japanese are attacking. Is this Clark Field right here? Or is this... What is this? Where are they attacking? I'm not sure what this is. I think it's Clark Field. But the Japanese are attacking. It looks like Clark Field. We've got over 20 interceptors up. He has 21 escorts, 21 Zeros, and some 27 bombers. We're going to skip through the actual graphical representation of that combat. And you can see, actually, we claimed quite a few baddies. So my hope, and again, one of the things you have to remember at this part of the game is that all things are shrouded by fog of war. But you can see here we intercepted with 28 P-40s and then 15 other fighter aircraft. So 43 fighters up against 21 Japanese fighters and 27 Japanese bombers. We did admit to some 7 losses, which I think are probably accurate. But we also claimed 1 Zero destroyed and 9 Bettys, as well as 3 other bombers damaged. So frankly, for 7 fighters destroyed, if we really got 10 of his bombers and a Zero, that's probably about worth it. We really can't afford too much in the way of casualties over the Philippines. He's going to grind us down. But this is another interesting development that I'm seeing here. It's claiming 53 Zeros are escorting this second wave of bombers against our much-reduced fighter force now. And to me, if he really has 53 Zeros in here, plus the 30 or some odd Zeros he had before, then he must have pulled his Zeros out from sort of the Vietnam area to Formosa. Because I've played the game before as Japan, and they don't have like 70 Zeros that start off on the island. And I don't think he can pull that many out of the home islands unless he's spending all his political points, which I suppose is possible. But to me, it seems more likely that he's pulling his aircraft out of Formosa, because I have it out of the Vietnam area, because I have not seen any of his Zeros escorting strikes in the Malay Peninsula. You can see here, in this case, this raid, much more effective. 1 Betty destroyed. We lost several aircraft in the air and a couple on the ground. Additionally, another raid, this one coming over unescorted, so not as perhaps well coordinated with the Japanese. Some Bettys coming over Clark Field again. This time we claimed 5 shot down, 5 damage with no losses, so that's a very good result for us. And then yet another raid coming over, this time 18 Nels and 9 Zeros. But our fighters are pretty exhausted there. Only 8 of his Nels made it through the target. We claimed 1 shot down and 1 Zero for one of our own aircraft loss. Another victory there, in my opinion, in that airport. And then some Nels attacking some shipping to the southwest of the Philippines. Some of the transports that I ordered to try and escape from the Philippine Islands. No results there for him. Now we move to China. Some bombing going on in China. Recon bombing near Bhutan in the Malay Peninsula. They're claiming 16 Blenheims damaged on the ground, 1 Blenheim destroyed. I don't know if we have that many aircrafts there, but we'll see. Additionally, some Sallies. So he's really going all out trying to shut down Clark Field. That's a lot of bombing rates on Clark Field. We'll have to see what the damage looks like there at the end of this result. Okay, Sally's attacking Kookaburra. China. More bombing in Qatar. Let me know if that's a little bit better, guys. War in the Pacific game audio is so goddamn loud. Should be better now, I think. Let me know. Okay. So we've got our own aircraft attacking Japanese cruisers off the southeast corner of Malay, as well as some bombers from Singapore. Spoiler alert, none of these guys I don't think are going to do anything as far as my intelligence is indicating. We also have a raid of 12 B-17s that took off from Mindanao, attacking the Japanese formations near Apri. And you can see here we inflicted 108 casualties on those Japanese soldiers without any losses of our own. I think that's a pretty successful raid, I think. Hudson's out of Singapore. Again, not doing anything. And is that it for the turn? Well, more raids coming out of Singapore. A lot of Hudsons and Blenheims coming out of Singapore. More midget submarine actions. I'm fast forwarding through some stuff here, guys, that really there's no results to a lot of what's going on. This, however, more bombarding near... Oh, we got 2 shell hits on a light transport, at least. More amphibious landings near Kotobaru. Legepsi he's landing some troops on, which is on the southeast corner of Luzon. Japanese bombardment attack at Hong Kong, so he's really taking his time reducing Hong Kong. He's not going with a more conventional approach. He's trying to use artillery to beat me down, and it's succeeding to some extent. He's knocking a few squads out into disabled, but he suffered a few casualties himself. The defender value probably... I mean, I'm sure he'll take it when he eventually does attack. Meanwhile, he launches an attack at Kotobaru, reduces the fortifications, and our troops are driven back into the interior of Malaya. So you can see here our troops fell back from Kotobaru. His troops successfully took the ground at 123 casualties. We lost 1,866, 112 squads destroyed, 162 non-combatant squads destroyed, 21 engineers destroyed, 16 guns lost, 1 vehicle lost, 2 units retreating, 1 unit destroyed. I think... Was it the FM... Which one of these brigades was the one that surrendered? Meanwhile, he attacked near Chumpon. I had moved a base force across the peninsula in an effort to cut off reinforcements that might be coming down this rail line from the Dutch East, or from sort of the French Indochina region near Thailand. But he did drive us back. And then Wake Island, guys, Wake Island fell. Alright, so Wake Island has fallen. The Japanese lost 758 casualties, 13 squads destroyed, but we lost 1,000 men. Now, I don't think the U.S. historically had 1,000 men on the island, but nonetheless we lost 1,000 men. We also lost 8 aircraft destroyed, 2 units destroyed, 11 vehicles, 29 guns, 23 engineers, 109 non-combatant squads, and 18 infantry squads, all lost. Now, if he really lost 758 men, those are incredibly heavy losses for the Japanese to take on Wake Island. So that's good for us, I guess. Meanwhile, we launched our first counterattack up here near Yichang in the Chinese theater. The Japanese have the 34th Division and 2 sort of Royal Chinese Forces, RGCs, which I think are Chinese puppet soldiers. And you can see here we launched with quite a strong force. What is that? 8 corps of infantry. You can see here we lost pretty heavy casualties on some of these. The 68th Corps lost very heavily. The 67th Corps lost very heavily. Some of our other corps were not as badly hit. At the end of the day, though, it was very bloody for us. So we lost 6,500 soldiers attacking near Ichang. The Japanese lost 758. But the story that I think is worth pointing out is the Japanese fortifications were reduced from a fort level 3 to a fort level 2, which means that they will get a lower defensive buff the next time that we fight them. Our Allied assault adjusted was 1,988. That's our assault after the fortifications are impacted. The Japanese adjusted defense is 1,542, again, adjusted after the fortifications are affected here. You can actually see our attacking force originally was 1,700. I think the shock attack gave us more. His defensive force was 639, but it was almost doubled by, or more than doubled, by the fort level 3. So I think that'll be good for us because at the end of the day, his troops are bloodied and they lost some of their fortifications. So I don't know if we're going to want to do a shock attack immediately again after losing that many men, but it might be prudent. I guess we'll have to figure that out. So I think that ends it. All right, so now we're into the turn. It is December 11th, 1941. If we take a look across the Pacific, the Japanese offensive really hasn't gotten rolling quite yet. They did land some troops on Legazpi, so on the southeast corner of the Philippines. It looks like they've got about 9,800 soldiers and 7 units ashore so far. Meanwhile, they took up Aparai with about 15,000 soldiers, 80 guns, and 143 armed vehicles, and they have about 1,500 soldiers and 9 guns in Vigan, despite the fact that they've been unloading troops there for quite a while. So it seems like the bulk of their offensive is coming in here up in the north and then in the southeast corner of the map. My bombers who hit the landing forces near Aparai were made up of some B-17s out of Kaegun. Those B-17s didn't lose any casualties. And they only have 2 that are currently repairing. So we actually have 17 B-17s that are ready out of these formations. Their fatigue levels are low, and they're going to gain some experience if we keep, ordering them to bomb the enemy soldiers. I think we'll continue to order them to bomb there. They have the normal radius hex. It's a 16 hex target. Normal radius for the B-17 variant that we're flying here is 17 hexes. If we take a look at the aircraft data, the B-17D is the bomber that's being used, so there's no belly turret yet. It's got a weird sort of rear gun or lower facing gun, but it's not actually a belly yet, or it's not a ball turret yet. But the normal load is 8 500-pound bombs. You lose about half that payload if it's 2 hexes more than the current range. I could have ordered them to bomb ship targets, but frankly, B-17s are so bad at bombing ship targets that seems like a bad idea. The bulk of his attacks were in against Clark Field, which you can see here. Airfield runway damage is 66 and service damage is 41. So the runway is pretty close to shut down right now. Where are we at with fortifications at Bataan? Bataan fortifications are at 2. We're at 12% for that base here. I'm trying to build a wall of forts kind of around, but that may not be a wise idea. Got some other units moving north. Where are these guys going? Nowhere, huh? All right, we'll move these guys back to Clark Field. These soldiers, the 2nd or the 3rd, 12th Infantry Battalion is moving to Linyan. All right. We've got some soldiers here. 2 infantry divisions. I really don't have enough supply. I don't have enough supply to go around, really. The bulk of our supply is either in Manila or Bataan, which is sucking up the majority of the supply. What do our aircraft look like here? We have some B-17s here, but they're all damaged, so I can't fly them out. I've got 1 B-10 Polo. That's lovely. It's an O-47A. Is that a transport or a dive bomber? It's a recon plane, apparently. Observation, I guess. Yeah, okay, so those fighters are all kind of damaged at the moment. We do have some fighters based out of Manila, which are still operational. 13 P-40 Warhawks out of Manila. Another 5 Warhawks down here. So we've got about 18 fighters operating out of there. Additionally, we've got some aircraft up north here. 10 Warhawks are operational out of EBA. They don't have enough aviation support, though, to keep them active for very long. Might actually make sense. I don't know if I want to expend supply to make Bataan a bigger airfield or not. What's the air support look like? 74. So they can support about 20 more aircraft. So I think what I'm going to do is if he's going to keep hammering at Clark Field, I'm going to pull one of my Warhawk squadrons south to Manila. And I'm going to order the whole thing. Right now only the one plane that can fly moved. But I'm going to order... Or that whole thing did move. Because they have a rail line. So if you don't have a rail line and you've got unoperational aircraft, then you can't move everything. But because these guys do have a rail line, they can all move. Yeah, Clark Field's what they're flying over. What's Clark Field's aviation support at? 204. Wow. They can support a lot of aircraft. Too bad it's getting just pulverized right now by enemy airstrikes. Fortunately, that means he's largely ignoring Manila, at least for now. The S-36, let's go target these guys. Sub-patrol. Dock. They should resupply here. Have any torpedoes? Yeah, they do. Okay. And then I think there's one other sub here, the Porpoise, which suffered some pretty heavy damage, so we're actually ordering it back to Brisbane, completely out of the theater, to try and repair. We have one sub-tender still in Manila Harbor. That's the Canopus. It suffered some pretty heavy damage, so trying to escape with it is probably not wise. And the rest of our surface fleet has all escaped, more or less. A couple of patrol boats over there. We have some different subs and task forces up here that are kind of trying to continue to interdict with enemy shipping in the Philippine region. We also have this enemy force down here near Legazpi that's also landing troops. The bulk of our vessels are already escaping or moving toward either the Dutch East Indies or Northern Australia. We have formed one surface task force down here to the south, a large task force, Task Force 43, which has been formed out of the old Task Force Z. This consists of the battleship Prince of Wales, the battlecruiser Repulse, the U.S. heavy cruiser Houston, and then a force of 6 light cruisers, a mixed bag of American modern cruisers like the Boise, several Dutch cruisers like the Java, the De Ruyter, and is the Trump? Who is this? Is this Dutch also? So a bunch of Dutch light cruisers and one American light cruiser, and then a mixed force of destroyers, some of them British. I think actually they might all be British. And that's what's moving north to potentially engage some enemy shipping. So if we go back to the Malay Peninsula, which I think is where our best opportunity is to deal the Japanese a bloody nose, they've landed troops on Kota Baru. They've seized that facility or that base, and they've forced one brigade to surrender. One brigade retreated, and this base force is disorganized and can't be given movement orders, I don't think. Or can they? It says they're disorganized, so I don't know what the disorganized move means, other than I don't think I can order them to fight, but we're ordering the 8th Indian Brigade back to Kota Baru, and we're also ordering actually not Kota Baru, we're ordering the 8th back to Singapore, or the 3rd, oh my god, words, one back to Malacca, one back to Singapore. So I think we're ordering a large portion of our land force to retreat to Malacca, which seems like another natural stopping point on the drive south to Singapore, and then a lot of them are also being ordered back to Singapore, so I'm sort of splitting my orders. Our troops up here in the north are beginning to move as well. These are switching over to strategic move, which means they're going to move by rail, so the 6th Indian Brigade, for example, is going to move by rail south to Singapore. The other brigade, the 15th Indian Brigade, is currently still packing up to move to Johor Bahru, which is 460 miles to the south, where is it? Here. So we're moving the bulk of our troops either to Malacca, to Bahru, or to Singapore itself in an effort to sort of reestablish a defensive line in the southern portion of the Malay Peninsula. And all of our troops, in all these different areas are in retreat in that direction in one form or another. This battalion... they're going to march there. Some of them are marching on foot. Some of them are retreating via train, but everybody back to the southern corner of the island. The main reason for that is, one, we're really disorganized up here. The Japanese have a path of advance down the Kotobaru rail line here into the heartland of the Malay Peninsula, and then Singora can also serve as another railway line advance to the south. So very good lines of advance for the Japanese where they've got rail support and they can move rapidly. The other problem is, if we try and defend ourselves at places like Kuala Lumpur, the Japanese have a rail line that goes right around that base and a flank around the right flank of that base. So these two rail lines, one goes down the left, sort of the west coast, and one goes down the center of the Malay Peninsula. And any of these cities on any one of these points can be flanked just either to the right or to the left. So the Japanese can really easily move down the peninsula, and that's pretty risky for us to try and defend to the north. Additionally, a strategy that a lot of players do is they either land at Mersing or they land at Johor Bahru, which could allow him potentially to cut our troops off north as well. That makes me a little bit even more nervous because he's had this force of cruisers and battleships hanging off the eastern coast of the Malay Peninsula. Part of that may be because he's trying to prevent our Task Force Z from racing north and causing trouble for his landing ships. But the other part of that could be because he's hanging them here in place until he has an invasion force ready to land at either of these bases. And again, this is a pretty common strategy. It's one I've used. I usually land at Mersing, but he could go a little more aggressive and try to land a little bit further south. Mersing, the problem if he lands here is he doesn't have a railway line to the west, so it's going to probably take him, once his forces are concentrated and ready to move west and have taken the base, it'll probably take him 2 to 3 days to move west, which would give me even more time to withdraw, especially for troops who are moving via train. If he lands at the base further south, he's kind of already cut off the line of retreat, but the problem is that's that much closer to Singapore, which means he's in more danger from any forces that might be at this base. I'm not too worried about these guys. I thought they might be an invasion force a little while ago, but I'm pretty sure these are all just sort of some transports, some airplane tenders, some cruisers, and some battleships. The force I'm more worried about now is one that I've just detected up here to the north. It says they're moving southwest. So rather than moving north and back to Vietnam, as I would expect if they were, the ships that had dropped troops at Kotobaru, the fact that they're moving southwest and that intelligence is largely claiming that they're made of either armed personnel destroyers, which are destroyers meant to transport troops, light cruisers, escorts, or destroyers, tells me they're probably carrying something. I don't see any troop transports in there, so it's probably not a major invasion force, but it might be something like a brigade or something like that, and I don't have a super strong force at Mersing. So he could be trying to land troops at Mersing as sort of a light force at Mersing to sprint inward. If it's really a light force, I'm hoping that brigade can deal with it. They don't have any fortifications built up. Well, actually, they have one fortification built up. But that's the other reason I've built this task force over here with some of these American cruisers, is I'm basically going to sail them north here. They're going to hang out a couple of provinces to the south of Singapore. I hope that keeps him out of range of the Japanese bombers in French Indochina, which could be ranging south to try and bomb us. But essentially, I'm going to move this force up here, and it's just going to kind of hang out here. Just like this Japanese task force is hanging out to the northeast, this force is going to hang out here. And also, the other thing that makes me a little nervous is intelligence says these guys are moving west. So they could be moving into bombard Mersing. I'm not sure. I guess the one positive is if he does take his battleships into bombard Mersing, then they're going to use up their ammunition, so that by the time these troop transports come south, I'm going to assume he'll have to return these guys back to Indochina, assuming these are troop transports, but he'll have to withdraw these guys back to China, and then I might be able to get in amongst these guys. If they're really just some destroyers and light cruisers, even if it's just a minor force, it would sure be sweet to sink a few enemy ships at light cost. Also, if he's as far south as Mersing, his fighters' ability to harass my bombers, I think, will be somewhat reduced. Maybe not. The Zero has a really long range, but I'm also suspecting that he's pulled most of his Zeros out to Formosa. So if that is true, then my forces there will be able to do some damage. And frankly, Singapore's Air Force is in pretty good shape right now. He's focused the majority of his time and effort further north. He did do some damage here to this base up here near Kutan. But we have 155 aircraft at Singapore. 120 of them are ready. 14 are not ready, and 20 are in reserve, which means they're not actually damaged. They just don't have pilots, or it's bigger than the unit that is trying to fly them. So that's the good news. A good chunk of those are fighters. So of that force, Well, I'm not showing any now, but I know they are. Float planes, float fighters. Well, where the hell? Oh, there it goes. So of those aircraft, we have 50 fighter aircraft. Again, granted, the Buffalo kind of sucks, but we have 50 fighter aircraft among that are ready to intercept or escort. We have some 30 light bombers of Blenheims and Hudsons. Now, we learned last turn those aren't very effective against ships, but it's better than nothing. And then we also have some torpedo bombers. This is the force I'm really excited about. We've got 33 torpedo bombers. Of those, a good 27 of them are Viblisses, which are very good against enemy shipping, and 6 short swordfish. So we've got a pretty strong formation down here, ready to deal with any invasion force. They can't range out that far. These torpedo bombers cannot quite hit this enemy task force, but they can hit anyone who adventures as far west as Mersing with torpedoes. They might be in range to hit these larger ships next turn in the event that the Japanese move them closer to the Malay coast. We'll see. Sure would be sweet to sink a Japanese battleship that got a little bit over eager. I know I've done it. I tried to bombard, was it Johor Bahru or Mersing, and I lost a Japanese battleship in my last game against Belugan. Vidi beasts. Yeah, so that kind of is the situation on the Malay Peninsula. All these troops are retreating to the south. Surface force is advancing to the north. I really should get some of these submarines up north here as well against the Japanese if they are going to move some vessels toward us. I think all these guys have full ammo loads, so the Dutch submarines can actually be effective as well. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. I'm going to order some of these guys, as long as they're not damaged, to move north. They're actually relatively fast. The problem is they're not very quiet. So we're going to put one off Mersing. We're going to put one off the city to the south. I don't think he'd be so bold as to invade the Singapore itself. That would be borderline madness. So we're going to go ahead and send a couple of these guys north. He's going to have a react so he can intercept if necessary. And then we're going to get this guy. Again, everybody, I don't think any of these guys have engaged. He did drop, well, he could have dropped some mines. He didn't. And we're going to set their remain on station. So we'll send some of these guys. Where is he? Where did I just click? Okay, he's northeast of Mersing, or northwest of Mersing, or whatever. And then let's also set this guy just directly. You're going to go fight these troop ships if they're going to stay there. I'm not sure if they will or not. Why do I call them troop ships? They look like they're not troop ships. They're the aircraft that we'd been bombing with our bombers. They're the battleships. But, you know, why don't we move one up here toward Kutan just in case he lands some troops there as well. I'm not as worried there because he doesn't have a good line to the west, so that's not really a threat if he lands there. But we just moved all those subs. I think we've got a few other subs, at least one other sub here. Replenish task force from port. No retirement. And we'll put you also off Kutan, just in case. I don't think it would be smart for him to land there, but you never know. All right, so we're moving those submarines north here to shield these 3 bases in the Malay Peninsula. He's moving his troops south. Nothing else really going on in Burma right now. We have some troops here, but nothing that we can really do anything with. He hasn't started advancing into the Malay Peninsula. We do have some transports that escaped from Georgetown with some aircraft on them. So we've got a formation of 24 Buffaloes, and we've got a formation of 10 Blenheims that are all moving north to Rangoon to reinforce the force there. That'll reinforce a force of some 4 Blenheims and 16 Buffaloes already. So when the campaign in the Burma region starts, they'll be very well ready. Additionally, we have some Flying Tigers, which are up here in the north, some P-40s, which also are going to help defend that area. Actually, it's kind of an interesting idea. Could I open these guys up? I don't even know what the unrestricted force is. Like, I don't know what headquarters is in Singapore, but it'd be interesting if I could get a force to Singapore. What is the headquarters in Singapore? I don't think they can't fly all that way, but you never know. What is this headquarters? Southeast Asia. So let's see if we can assign. Be a nasty surprise for him if we had some highly experienced P-40 pilots from the Chinese theater suddenly show up in Singapore. So, is it the Southern Command? That's another restricted headquarters. They're all restricted. Alright, so we're going to spend some political points. I don't think I can get him there. I think that's the problem. Yeah, it's unreachable. Maximum range is 14. What's this guy? Battalion, base force. Can't get there either? So I think it would take us multiple turns to get that far south. So we're going to fly him to Tavoy. So 22 of them are going to make it to Tavoy. And then we'll see if we can get them further south. Could be an interesting effort. That's a lot of political points to expend. Yeah, there's no way. They'll have to stop somewhere. Probably can stop in Georgetown. It's got good enough air bases. I don't have any air support, so they're going to kind of get stuck there, but I can rail everybody south to Singapore after that. So I do think we'll bring in 20 P-40s into Singapore. We'll see if that stuns them at all. It might be a chance to give them a bloody nose there. The rest of India, largely unchanged this turn, so I don't think we need to really look at that. We did have a battle. Well, he continues to bombard near Hong Kong. Nothing's changed there. Our troops in all these other areas are still marching. Ooh, actually. I don't know what he has near Hainan or Hanine, whatever this city is. Where are these guys marching? Not anywhere near me. So I guess we'll order this Chinese corps to shock attack. I don't know what they're attacking. It could be a strong force, could be a weak force here. But, as much damage as I can cause to the Japanese, the better. None of these other guys have moved or gotten to their targets yet. These guys, I think, are moving one more turn, maybe 2 more turns. Oh, they're a few turns away. We've gotten one force into Pao Tao. So I think what we'll do here is we'll just order a bombardment attack to try and see what we're facing here. If we can maybe counterattack the Japanese there. This provincial Chinese infantry unit is also newly arrived, so we'll go ahead and launch a bombardment attack here as well. So some fighting will break out in the north. The bombardment attack is mainly to scout what the enemy has. And then in Yichang, we just had a battle that was fought. Our troops are still going to be launching a full-scale assault. Now, the 68th and 67th Chinese Corps are badly depleted, the 32nd as well, down to 80 attack value. But we still have the 2nd, 8th, and 75th all very strong, and the 45th is also pretty strong. So I think we're going to continue the attack. The game hasn't switched us off shock attack. It still has us launching another shock attack, despite the fact that some of these corps, like the 67th, are very disrupted. Only 77 units ready, 134 disrupted. But they're still game to launch an attack in Yichang. All of them are prepped for Yichang, and they have sufficient supply for a few days here to launch some more attacks. We have additional troops on the move for this base, but they're all probably 3 or 4 days away. If I had waited or coordinated so that they would all arrive at the same time, then a victory might have been at hand, but I did not, alas. And the troops that are moving in behind Yichang have a couple more days before they get there, so I don't think I'm going to be able to encircle him as much as I would have liked. So we'll just have to kind of deal with that as it is. Meanwhile, these guys are going to march to 8549, which I think is here. Yep. They'll arrive next turn. These guys will arrive in a couple of turns. So we're going to try and cut off Xinyang and Hankow from each other by swarming troops in between them. That'll cut the supply to Xinyang and allow me potentially to destroy these Japanese units over here. But that I don't think this unit's going to be strong enough to do it. But I'm going to order him to combat anyway, just in case. Maybe they'll get an attack off once they move in there. So we may have an attack here in case the Japanese have a really weak force between these two. And we'll have a follow-on attack near Chang. The Philippines we've kind of already looked at. If we go to the Pacific, we can see our carrier forces are way here to the south. They finished running away. The Japanese had, I think, their carrier forces up here. Battleships and carriers sighted moving southwest. Cruisers and destroyers moving southwest up here, north of Johnson Island. I'm assuming he was trying to find our carriers, but our carriers are way here to the south. We sprinted them at top speed, so we've got the Lexington and the Enterprise. They're doing an end around, so they're going to swing way east, and then they're going to eventually move north. You can't really see it there. They're going to swing way east, and then they're going to move north, and then west into Hawaii from the east. In addition to that, we've also established, or we're also bringing in a carrier task force from the East Coast, led by the Saratoga, so that hopefully inside about a week, we'll have 3 carriers at Pearl Harbor. And in addition to that, Pearl Harbor is not as badly hit as I would have feared. There is a lot of damage here. He badly hit the Maryland and the Arizona and the Pennsylvania and the Tennessee and the California. All are going to be out for quite a while. You can see a lot of these ships have days in the hundreds in terms of repairs. Other ones are being repaired at Pierside, but this red means they can't be fully repaired at Pierside. They need a shipyard. But the good news is, if we actually just narrow this down to just battleships, the good news is that we can see here we've got 2 battleships that'll be ready inside of 3 weeks, fully repaired. The Nevada and the Oklahoma. The Oklahoma doesn't even need a shipyard. She could probably sail and fight and be fine now, but she'll take about 17 weeks to be good as new, or 17 days to be good as new. And the Nevada needs 22 days. It's in a shipyard, but it has very minimal major damage, just 2 float and 1 engine damage. So she could probably, if in a pinch, be pushed back into service. The issue is kind of some of her secondary guns are suffering from some damage, some of her flak as well. So both of these ships will be ready for action here inside of 3 weeks. So, a week from now when the carriers arrive in Pearl, they'll rest, they'll refuel, they'll replenish from their sprints out in the ocean. A week after that, we'll have 1 battleship, and then maybe a few days after that, we'll have 2 battleships ready to sail into harm's way. In addition to that, we've got 2 more battleships up here on the East Coast at Seattle. We've got the Warspite and the Colorado. Both are repairing. They recently overwent upgrades and overhauls, so they'll be in port for about 2 to 3 weeks, and they'll be ready to go to sea soon as well. How long does the Warspite have? We don't have to withdraw the Warspite till 1943. So we will have 4 battleships ready for sea on the East Coast or in Pearl Harbor within a couple of weeks. So 4 battleships and 3 carriers. That'll be our striking force in the immediate future. Meanwhile, I really do need to get some convoys and the like set up for Australia. We will wait 1 more day before we start setting those up. Only other thing worth commenting is if there is no surface battle northeast of Singapore coming anytime soon, we also have some additional reinforcements coming from the north, 2 heavy cruisers and 2 light cruisers from the British force in India. They're going to swing through here between Sumatra and Java, and they'll sail north to join this Force Z, depending on what the status is in a week or so. So that's the current update for my War in the Pacific turn. I think we're about ready to turn it over back to XTRG. The B-17s in the southern corner near Mindanao really can't hit the Dutch East. Or they can't hit French Indochina. They can't hit Cameron Bay. I don't think anyway. I can check. I don't think they can. Certainly not at their normal radius. Extended radius. Yeah, they could. This red line represents their extended radius. They theoretically could, or maybe that's not even true. I don't know if the blue is... No, they can't. It's 24 hexes away. Their max range is 22. So they can't hit Cameron Bay. We could if we moved them up like to Palawan Island or something like that. They could probably hit Cameron. But I don't really think they're going to do very good anyway in a anti-shipping scenario. And the damage they do to the port is largely negligible. I'd rather they disrupt and disorient his troops that are landing ashore here than worry about hitting something that won't really have any impact. One of the other strategies I could have is if he starts to take some of these oil-rich islands or oil-rich bases on the northeast coast or northern corner of Borneo, I can send my B-17s against them. The Japanese really don't have any good flak in this game, so I could send my B-17s against those aircraft and try and reduce their effectiveness of their oil fields, which would be, I think, pretty useful. These fighters are escort. And isn't there a bomber formation here? Naval attack? What are these guys? These guys are pretty good on naval attack. We'll set them down to 10,000. I'm actually going to transfer some of these aircraft in here. We've got some Brewster Buffaloes also in the this region over here. So we'll transfer some of our fighters here from the southern corner of the island of Borneo. So these guys should be able to support Singapore as well from a bit of a distance. So we'll do that. I'm guessing there's not enough aviation support at this base. Yeah, needs 7. Or needs 22. It has 7. Can we transfer any aircraft down here? Are these guys torpedo bombers? I think they are. I thought the Dutch had some torpedo bombers. What is their... No, they just have bombs. What about... Yeah, they really love their bombs. The problem is bombs are not very useful against... these aircraft. I'm kind of tempted to kind of switch some of these Dutch aircraft in the south to the north. Send them to Singapore. I don't know if I can do that without changing their headquarters. Yeah, so these guys are all restricted. So it would cost political points to change their headquarters. Doesn't even look like it lets me do that. Yeah, these are hard-coded into their bases. Or into their headquarters in any event. Anything over here? These guys can support up to 11 aircraft. So let's move these guys, this fighter group, to the north. They'll fly out of Pallenberg. And then what I'm going to do with them is they're going to be a little bit tired from the transfer, but I'm going to order all of them off cap. I'm going to order them all onto long-range cap over Singapore, just in the event that the Japanese decide to launch some airstrikes. Singapore could use... Really? 7 is too far for long-range cap. Damn. Is there any base closer they can use? Air capacity 1. No aviation support. Shit. Alright, well... We'll set all naval bombers here to naval attack. I don't need anyone on cap, I don't think. Everyone will be on escort duties. Can these guys do long range over Singapore? Nope. It's 8 away. Shit! What about this base here? What does it have? Very limited aviation support. Alright. Well, I think we're going to have to just live with that situation as it is. Unfortunately, we can't transfer any of those ships or any of those aircraft or any of those whatevers. So yeah, I think that'll do here for this turn. I appreciate you all tuning in for another look at my War in the Pacific series here. What are these guys doing here? These cargo are... Where are they supposed to go? They're just sitting in there waiting to draw enemy air attack. We'll move to Rangoon. Load up some supplies, I guess. Why don't you cancel your supply load? there any troops worth loading here? No, no troops. Maybe you just draw some air attack. Why don't you sail out Mersing? I'm just going to use you as cannon fodder. Yeah, okay. So I think that'll do it here for this look at our War in the Pacific turn. I'm going to go ahead and end the turn and save it and send it back over to XTRG, and hopefully he'll get to work on his side of the turn quickly so we can get to our next turn very soon. But until then, guys, thanks again for tuning in to yet another episode of our War in the Pacific game versus XTRG, and we'll see what comes through on July 11th when we get our combat result. Until next time, this is the Historical Gamer saying thank you for watching, and I'm out.